It's the Ross Tucker Football Podcast.
Oh, yeah, it is. But it's not just any Ross Tucker Football Podcast. It is a Monster Monday presented by DraftKings, America's #1 rated sportsbook app. I am Ross Tucker, former NFL offensive lineman, 5 teams, 7 years. Those of you that check us out on YouTube, youtube.com/Ross Tucker NFL, can see some of the helmets and the game balls or whatever behind me. We do this podcast, Ross Tucker Football Podcast, 3 times a week in the off season, and then daily, Monday through Friday for the 22 weeks, I guess 23 weeks now of the NFL season through the Super Bowl. Week 1 through the Super Bowl. So fired up for today's guest. I've been a big fan for the last few years. Since I first started listening to him on the Dan Lebetard Show with Stugotz, the one and only Stugotz. The dude is hilarious. Real name, John Weiner. I don't even know what Stugotz means. I just know the guy's hilarious. Can't wait to talk with him because there's a lot going on down in Miami with Tua and Xavier Howard and just the Dolphins in general. Plus, I always like talking with other guys in the media that have big podcasts like Stugotz. We'll have a new Spread the Word winner via social media this week. My big push this week is Facebook. So if you want to win this week, facebook.com/Ross Tucker NFL. I really want to get that to 10,000. However, you can also always engage at Ross Tucker NFL on Twitter or Instagram or at Ross Tucker Pod. Love those of you that take advantage of sponsors. I will be telling you about Raycon in a little bit. The best earbuds ever. Riding a bike, working out, pop them in, listen whatever you want to listen to, podcasts, music, whatever. And then we'll have the YouTube cameo style shout out later in the week as well. I actually did 2 cameos in front of my mother-in-law and father-in-law on Father's Day because they came in. Or no, it was the day before. It was Saturday. Had a couple cameos come in. People wanted them for Father's Day. Boom. Banged them both out. It was awesome. What a cool app the Cameo app is. You can always hit me up there as well. Anyway, much to discuss on a lot of different topics. We'll get into some Houston Texans stuff, some Cole Beasley and Buffalo Bills stuff for sure. But first, it's Big Show time.
The Big Show.
All right, so I told you guys on Friday that I would have a surprise guest, and I do. It's a guy that I have been a big fan of for a long time. Absolutely hilarious. Fan of the show. And there's enough going on where he resides in South Florida with Xavier Howard and Tua that I needed to get his local expertise. He is John Weiner, a.k.a. Stugotz, from the Dan Lebetard Show with Stugotz and a member of the DraftKings family. Stugotz, welcome, my friend.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Looking forward to it. I don't know what expertise I can offer. Expertise is not a strong suit for me, Ross, but I'll give you the best I have, okay, on the Dolphins, on Howard, on Tua, on everything going on there. But I appreciate it, man. I enjoy speaking with you, and so I'm happy to do this.
All right, so here's what's weird. I didn't realize you and Dan had a show, by the way, since 2004. It's kind of interesting, isn't it, that like you guys were killing it in Miami, you're doing it locally, crushing it, but unless you're down there, like I do a lot of WIP Philly stuff, right? In Philadelphia, like Angelo Cataldi is an absolute legend.
Yes.
If he's like if people in Philadelphia love that guy, in Pittsburgh, they never even heard of him. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, and I guess you and Dan were dominating Miami. I didn't know a lot about you. Then you go national, and I'm in my car, and I'm going on Channel 80 on Sirius XM, ESPN Radio, and I'm like, this guy's hilarious. Like, this guy gets it. I like this kind of content. Tell me when you made the switch from being just Miami to national and what that was like for you in terms of people knowing who you were and stuff.
It's interesting. So we started the show, as you pointed out, back in 2004. So we're like 17, 18 years into this thing. And, these radio marriages don't last that long. You're not supposed to live in a very small closet studio with someone for 18 years. I spent more time with Lebetard than my wife over the last 18 years. And so it's been a marvelous ride. It really a magical ride, really. Because Russ, we started out in Miami, as you pointed out. Now it's Miami, Fort Lauderdale, so we're on. It's a major market, right? It's a top 15 media market, at least it was at the time when we started. And Dan and I set out, and really to Dan's credit, I'll tell you a quick funny story. When we started the show, Dan had no radio experience whatsoever, none. I'm the only one of the two of us that had any sort of radio experience. So I drove the show, and Dan and I didn't really know each other. So I'm sitting there like I'm guessing as to what it is that Dan's interested in. Like I'm just trying to do a normal sports radio show. And as we all know, now think about that back in 2004, and now think about what you know about Lebetard, okay? And me just lobbing like, hey, top 5 quarterbacks of all time at Lebetard, and he's looking at me like, who the hell am I doing this show with? And so we started back in 2004, and like we've tried to play back the first few episodes of our show, but Dan can't get through 5 minutes of the episode. It was so bad, right? But luckily we had, and I think every show kind of needs this, we had the time to figure it out and find our footing. And we were able to. And I remember a conversation we had with Boog Shambi, maybe a year or so into the show. And Boog he's now the voice of the Cubs, but used to do Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN and one of the great baseball broadcasters that we have. He's a good friend to both me and Dan, and he knows talk radio as well as anyone. He's done his own show. And he said, listen, if it's going to be the Dan Lebetard Show with Stugotz, the guy that needs to start every single segment and drive the show is Dan. Therefore, Stugotz is not guessing as to what it is Dan wants to talk about or where Dan wants to take the show. Dan can just take it wherever he wants to go, and Stugotz will just react to what it is Dan is saying. So we got started in 2004, and we just Dan set out to try to do it differently because, and I say this respectfully, I would have done the same show, but all of these shows, if you listen across platforms, for the most part, they're talking about the same stuff. They sound the same. They are the same. And Dan said, listen, I just want to set out and be different. And so we tried to take a different approach where we're making fun of ourselves. We're making fun of sports. We're talking about the serious stuff when we have to because no one's better at that in this industry than Lebetard is, at least in my opinion. And so we just set out to do something different. It stood out. The Miami audience, which Miami is not a serious sports town. So this show actually fit well within this market. And about 3 years in, and I was the general manager of the radio station. 3 years in, now back then we would get rating books. Arbitron would send out a book, right? And so I got a book, and Dan and I usually rated somewhere 15, 16. I got the Arbitron book about 3 years in. I didn't see us at 15 or 16. And now you would think, hey, confidence, the guys, like, okay, hey, we did really good. Let's go to the top 10. I did not do that. I went the other way. I'm like, did we finish last? Did we even rate? And I didn't see our name. So then I said, okay, maybe we did better than 15 this time. I went down. We weren't 14. We weren't 13. We weren't 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. We were number one in the market at 25.54. And there were massive numbers. And those numbers continued, and they grew, and they grew, and they grew. And ESPN took notice of it. And Dan had some relationships within ESPN to begin with, but they took notice of those numbers, the national guests that we were getting on our show. And ESPN called me and Dan and wanted to see if we were interested in taking our show nationally. And so just to kind of bring that full circle, yeah, you're doing the show locally down here in your little corner in Miami. And yeah, we were big deals down here in Miami, but then you start doing it on ESPN and your show's on TV. And all of a sudden, your parents are suddenly into the show. You have cousins that you never knew you had before. You have friends you never knew you had before. You're walking through airports in the middle of the country and people are screaming out, Stugotz! And so, yeah, it was life-changing in a good way, in a great way, in the most positive way imaginable. But certainly a lot different than doing local radio, man. They put you on ESPN, man. It will change your life, and it did for us. Dan and I enjoyed our time there. It took a show that was great, and it made it bigger, and we're grateful for that.
So you said something I thought was interesting, and one of the things I wanted to ask you about Miami. So, I'm from Philly, right? Yeah. And you're from New York area. Where is Port Washington, by the way? Is that upstate or is that Long Island?
Yeah, Port's Long Island. It's Nassau County. It's pretty close to the Nassau Coliseum where the Islanders are playing.
Okay, all right.
3 or 4 exits. So it's about 35 minutes outside of Manhattan.
Okay, so that's why you're a lacrosse guy, and that's why you're a Jets fan. It makes sense. Like, that's what you do if you're from Long Island. So, but you've been in Miami for a long time now. So you probably know, but like up in the Northeast, right? And I played for New England. I played, in New York, lived there with my wife. You just think of Miami fans as like, come on, dude. You know what I mean? Like, they'd rather be on their boat. They'd rather be at the beach.
Windsurfing.
They're not really diehard fans. Okay, if the Heat get LeBron, they're into it. If the Dolphins get somebody, I think there's more Dolphins fans nationally than there are even in Miami. So tell me about Miami sports fans compared to the Northeast or just in general.
It's different. I mean, it really is. Listen, having grown up in the Northeast, right? And Ross, tell me if you agree with this first off. Don't you think most sports fan bases are like that? Like in Philadelphia, if the Sixers aren't good, that place isn't packed, is it? Am I wrong? I mean,
well, it's not packed, but the ratings are even better on local sports talk radio because people are pissed. People are angry, right? Whereas I feel like there's cities where if the team's not good, people just move on, do something else in their life.
Right.
In Philadelphia or Boston or New York, if the team's not good, people get angry, and the ratings are actually better for sports talk radio.
Yeah, no, they are. It's don't be 60. It's be 60-0 or 0-16. Just don't be 8-8. All right, there's nothing to yell about 8-8 or 9-7 or 7-9. It's different. Listen, having spent enough time in the Northeast, like in November at 5:00, it's dark out, it's snowing, it's what are you gonna do? But down here in November, it's 72 degrees and a cloud in the sky. And I live on a golf course, and it's like, okay, maybe there's a good football game on, but can I squeeze 9 holes in during the football game and come home and watch the fourth quarter? Do I really want to spend my day at Dolphin Stadium when I could sit here at my house, air conditioned, go play a little golf, come back in, grab a beer, go back out, come back in, the whole thing? And so there's just options. It's to me, and so is it the best sports town in the world? No. Do I understand why? Yes. You have many, many different people, moving down here from all different states. So you have a ton of different fan bases that are down here. They are a loyal and passionate Dolphin fan base. I can tell you that. Good or bad, the Dolphins fill that stadium up. And that's usually what drives most of the sports conversation down here, although the Heat in recent years have kind of taken over. But you do have a city here that, we've won 2 World Series. The Dolphins have some legacy. The Hurricanes are maybe the most storied college football program in the history of the sport. You have the Miami Heat with the Big Three winning 2 championships, and then another one with Wade and Shaq and Riley down here. And so I guess what I'm trying to say, no, it's not the best sports fan base, but it's hard to compare anything to the Northeast when it comes to sports fandom, right? Like they just take their stuff very, very, very seriously. In large part, most of their teams go way, way back. You're talking Red Sox, Yankees. Those teams are playing back in like 1908, And so the Marlins don't have that kind of history. The Dolphins kind of do. The Heat certainly don't. The Panthers don't. And then you just factor in the fact that, it's 75 and sunny all the time down here. And just maybe, we don't want to go to a game and sit inside and watch a hockey game when it's 74 and not a cloud in the sky outside. And so it's not the best. But I've learned to love this town because it is what it is. We have options down here, and everyone else is just jealous that we have more options than they do, okay? Because in Philadelphia, it was 75 and sunny on a Sunday. I guarantee you there might not be as many people watching the Eagles game,
I think there's some truth to that. I'll say this too, man. I don't know if you and Dan have ever talked about this. I've made this statement before. I'll make it again. I certainly in the NFL, and I think maybe in all of sports.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a single player who created more fans of a team than Dan Marino.
Yeah.
Like, dude, I'm telling you, even now, Stugotz, you go to an NFL game, it's rare if there's not somebody with a Marino jersey on. I live now like closer to central Pennsylvania. I'm telling you, if I drive to a gas station right now, there's a 50% chance that there's like a 54-year-old guy wearing a Marino jersey with jean shorts on. I'm just like this guy. You ask anybody who's a Dolphins fan.
We can get a bet on DraftKings about that, Ross. Seriously.
Yeah, no, I'm telling you right now, you ask any guy who's a Dolphins fan, they'll be like, because of Marino. Because of Marino. Yeah. It's almost like, can you think of, there's a lot of Patriots fans because of Brady, probably, I guess. But like, I really think there's no other guy I can think of that created that. I think he made the Dolphins a national team, and people are still fans of them because of Marino in the 80s. It's crazy.
All right, let's talk this out for a second, because the Dolphins had the 72 undefeated team. So I feel like they were maybe kind of national even before they got Marino. I could be wrong. Media
That's fair.
Could be a lot different back in the 70s than where it is right now. Don Shula perhaps made them national, maybe a little bit. But your larger point, I think you're correct. You still see him at the games today. Dan Marino hasn't played quarterback for the Dolphins in 25 years. And listen, I'll take it one step further. If you go to Dolphins Stadium, if you go to Hard Rock Stadium for a game, I think I'd be pretty confident in betting that the most amount of jerseys you would see is the number 13 jersey of Dan Marino. And so that's interesting. But just to kind of move it forward, that conversation forward, I think you're right. I think Marino brought so many fans to the Miami Dolphins, although they did have a pretty solid fan base before. I'm not certain how many fans Brady brought to the Patriots, but I will tell you that a guy down here that is kind of, at least in my mind and in Dan's mind, surpassed Marino. Because keep in mind, the Dolphins had been down here, and some of the things we just discussed. Shula, the 72 undefeated season, they had won a Super Bowl, okay? And so there was a fan base down here, right? But the guy down here that really brought fans to a team, perhaps more so than Marino, because there was a newness to this team and to this sport down here in Miami, I think it might be Dwayne Wade. Dwayne Wade, I think, turned this really into a basketball town where, Ross, I guess what I'm saying is, I think the fans down here are more passionate about the Miami Heat now than they are about the Miami Dolphins. I know that sounds crazy.
Wow.
Because Wade won a championship with Shaq, because of Riley, and then you factor in, they got, like, LeBron had anywhere in the country to choose. He chose here, right? He chose this lame sports city, okay? And he put us on the map from a basketball standpoint. You have LeBron, Wade, and Bosh. They've won 3 titles. They've been to the NBA Finals 5 times under Spoelstra and Riley. And so, basketball has become really the number one sport down here probably over the last decade. So I go Wade because I think Marino had an easier task. There was already a fan base. Wade had no fan base when he got
I think if you're talking in the city of Miami or South Florida, you might be right. But nobody in Reading, Pennsylvania is a Miami Heat fan, where I'm from.
Right.
But there are some Dolphins fans, and I can name them, like Matt Lytle, this guy, and they're Dolphins fans because of Marino.
Yes.
I think nationally, maybe Marino did it more. Speaking, by the way, about, because you mentioned confidence, where are you in particular, and then where are Dolphins fans when it comes to Tua? Excited, nervous, scared? Like, where are you guys right now?
I think the worst thing that happened to Tua was the guy drafted behind him, Justin Herbert, had 31 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. And he looks like Dan and I were having the conversation, Ross. Do you agree that if the Chargers called the Dolphins and said, hey, we're going to give you Justin Herbert, you're going to give us Tua, and you're going to give us 3 first-round picks, would you make that trade? Because I think I would. That's how good Herbert was, right?
Yeah, so Tua has a couple things going against him. One was Herbert was just way, way better. And then also, it just didn't help him that Fitz was on the team and that Flores went to Fitz and Fitz came through a couple times. It's just a bad look.
Right. Here's the problem with Tua. When you take a guy that high and he's that hype, he appeared in the times that he played to be a game manager, not a guy who can really get the ball downfield, not a guy who can win you a game on the road if everything's falling apart around you and all that good stuff that you want from your quarterback. And then he had the admission that he barely knew the playbook. I actually thought that was a positive. He was being honest. That's not an easy thing for a kid to say in his position. So I like the honesty there. And the fact that we were in a pandemic last year, I think a lot of us conveniently forget that, where there was no mini camp, there was no training camp. He didn't get time. He didn't have time to work with his wide receivers. They had better wide receivers this year than they did last year. They went out and got Fuller from the Texans. They have Devontae Parker. They got Waddle in the draft, and so they have weapons now for Tua. And so it's going to be interesting. I think the fan base is excited. They want to see Tua with a full training camp. They want to see Tua, get 16 starts and see what it looks like for an entire season, and hopefully, barring injury, we'll be able to see that. So the fan base is pretty excited, not just about Tua, but the Dolphins as a whole, because Dan and I were talking about this the other day, Ross. If you said, hey, you can coach any team for the next 10 years, right? Select any team you want to coach. You'll be the head coach for the next 10 years. I'm not certain a lot of coaches would choose the Dolphins when you consider the youth at quarterback, Devontae Parker, the youth at wide receiver. They have a pretty good defense. Flores and Greer have done a tremendous job building this roster. But here's what they have. They have draft equity, and they have more of it than anyone else over the next 3 years. They have 2 first-round picks coming up this year. Again, they have 2 first-round picks in 2 years. They have a bunch of second-round picks. So even if they got the Tua pick wrong, they'll have the ability to fix it through the draft. And so I think fans are just excited. They're excited for Tua this year. Hey, what do we have at quarterback? Let's see it over 16 games. And then they're really excited about the future of this team because they believe in Brian Flores and they believe in Chris Greer, the GM.
So here's what you need to do. You got to check him out on social media at Stugotz790. He's got an awesome podcast, Stupidity. I was on it, I think back maybe around the draft or somewhere around then.
Yep.
He's obviously on the Dan Lebetard Show with Stugotz at Lebetard Show. And the thing about Stugotz, like, you didn't get it all in this interview, but like the stuff you just, as you know in the media, like you just get it, man. Like it's just the self-deprecation, the stuff with your family and your wife. It's amazing. I love it. Really appreciate you coming on the show, and glad to have you.
I appreciate it, man. And listen, just to that end, if you're going to do this for a living and not let people into your lives, then like, I hate that you're doing it wrong. Like, Ross, I know you do this. You have to let people, you have to be relatable. So especially when you're sitting next to Dan, who no one can relate to, because who the hell is 50-something years old, doesn't have any kids, lives 5 blocks from the studio. I'm trekking an hour and a half. I got 2 kids. I'm driving 3 hours every day. I'm putting a real work day. That guy's living down on the beach. And so he's not relatable. And someone on our show needed to be relatable. And that someone was me. If you are not allowing people into your lives, this is a message to the entire industry. You ain't doing it right. I'm sorry. You got to let people know. We are lucky. We won the game of life. We won the lottery, Ross, that we're able to do this for a living. This never felt like work to me. Never, ever felt like work to me. But you know what? Maybe I have a great job. But the guy in the car listening to me, he wants to know that I have the same issues that he has. I have a couple of pain-in-the-ass kids, a wife who won't leave me alone, and where I try to hide and where I find my safe haven is on the golf course. And that's it. And, like, if you're not prepared to share all that with your audience, then get out of the business.
Stugotz, you're the man. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
All right, you got it, pal. Anytime.
I don't know how many of you guys know Stugotz. The guy is hilarious. Like, he just gets it. He and Lebetard, they get it. I'm a big fan of their show. I used to listen all the time when I was driving around, and they were at the 4-letter network. Now you just check out their podcast. They probably tell you about Raycon, just like I do. I mentioned it earlier in the show. So here's the deal. They're the best earbuds I'm aware of. And whether you're working out or just hanging out down at the beach, maybe you're working. I tell you guys all the time, I've got that high school athletic recruiting business, Go Big Recruiting. My employees, like when I do a Zoom call with them, they have their Raycon earbuds. I got them in. When they're making calls to high school student athletes and families, or even college coaches, they have their Raycon earbuds in. When I go to sleep early, because I go to sleep early, and my wife is watching something on her phone, Raycon earbuds in. 24-hour battery life, which is insane. And they're offering 15% off all their products for my listeners. Here's what you got to do to get it. Go to buyraycon.com/Tucker. There you'll get 15% off your entire Raycon order, the whole order. And it's such a good deal, you'll want to grab a pair and a spare. Absolutely, that's a must. That's 15% off at buyraycon.com/Tucker, buyraycon.com/Tucker.
Tuck's Takes.
Morning, Ross. Let's start in Houston. Tackle Marcus Cannon recently underwent knee surgery, and Deshaun Watson has yet to be interviewed by the NFL, according to his attorney, Rusty Hardin.
So as for Marcus Cannon, never good, especially since he opted out last year. But a lot of times they can say, you know what, let's get this cleaned up. Maybe he's got something bothering him. Maybe there's a loose body or something. So that's not that big a deal. I must just not understand what the deal is with the NFL's process. Like, why would they not interview Deshaun Watson? I mean, they're going to have to make a decision as to whether or not he can show up for training camp and play in games. Maybe they've already privately told the Texans their decision. I don't know. But why would they not talk to him yet? Maybe the thought process is we're wasting our time until there's some type of resolution. Maybe they settle, then we can interview people. I don't know. I'm sure it's above my head, and I just don't understand protocols or investigating. But they have like 6 weeks, 5 weeks really to make a decision. You'd think that they would have wanted to do that already.
Tuck's Takes.
Let's talk about the Buffalo Bills. First item of note, wide receiver Cole Beasley insisting that he's going to live life the way he wants to and not follow the NFL and NFLPA protocols.
Right. So he's been pretty outspoken about not wanting to get vaccinated. So anyway, I don't even want to get into that part of it because I know certain people have very strong feelings about it. I would just say some of the stuff with the Delta variant and what I've been reading, the guy I follow on Twitter about it that I think is pretty good, Scott Gottlieb, he's the former FDA commissioner. Now they're saying that there's a good study from the UK that says some of the people have like lost some of their gray matter in their brain, and that might be why they lose their sense of smell. I have friends that haven't gotten their sense of smell back, and it's been months. So that might be the logic or reasoning around it. So anyway, and I know all I ever say on the vaccine thing is 96% of doctors have been vaccinated. That's good enough for me. As for Beasley, this is an issue for the Buffalo Bills, Bri, because he's not vaccinated. And so you're supposed to have to wear a mask every day. You're not allowed to be out in public. It's the same protocols as a year ago if you're not vaccinated. Yet Beasley is saying, I'm going to live my life the way I want to live it, even if that means he's playing for free this year because he gets fined or if he has to retire early. So this is now kind of an issue for the Buffalo Bills. They got to figure out some type of solution here where they can get Beasley either on board with the program or make him happy because he was very productive for them last year. They need him available.
Tuck's Takes.
The Bills appear poised to build a new stadium in Orchard Park and will only allow vaccinated fans at games this season.
I read that over the weekend, Bri, and then right before we started this morning, I just saw a note that they won't require them to be vaccinated, fans to be vaccinated. So I don't know. Competing reports, I guess. I'm sure we'll get some clarity as to whether or not you're going to need to be vaccinated to attend Bills games. I know from doing the playoff games there last year, very strict policies in Western New York. I couldn't even get a COVID test in the state of Pennsylvania, Bri. I had to go to New York to get my COVID test to be able to call the game against the Ravens for Westwood One Radio. So very strict in New York State I think in general, maybe Western New York in particular, but it doesn't appear as if you'll have to be vaccinated. And then as for the Bills, yeah, it seems like they're going to build an open air stadium. Should be done in Orchard Park in like 2025. That's what I was reading, I guess.
Tux Takes.
Some other notes on a Monday include the Washington football team getting their trademark application denied, and both the Bears and the mayor of Chicago issuing statements regarding a new stadium in the suburbs for them.
So not good for the Washington football team, or at least for fans of that name, Washington football team, because they're not going to keep that name if they can't get the trademark protection, because that's how you make all the money. If you don't have the trademark protection, then anybody can be making all those jerseys and all those hats and everything, and you don't have any intellectual property rights there. So they'll change it to something else, the Washington whatevers, if they can't get the trademark for the Washington football team. You know, I thought the Bears issued a somewhat transparent, hey, we're trying to buy this land in Arlington Heights because we want to maybe do a stadium there. And that's what teams do a lot to try to get leverage to get a new stadium or whatever. Okay. I understand that part of it. The mayor of Chicago coming out and saying exactly what I just said, it's transparent. They're just trying to get a new stadium. Okay. But then to say, how about focus on putting a winning product on the field? How about focus on actually beating the Packers? I got to tell you, I thought the mayor went a little too far there. And people from Chicago might know more than I do about it. But, I mean, it's still a private company, and they can take the Chicago Bears where they want to take them, the McCaskey family. And something like that, you don't want to be in a position where you're poking the bear or the Bears, as the case may be. And it just seemed to me like the mayor really poking the Bears. And so if they get a more lucrative deal in Arlington Heights, and Arlington Heights is showing them the love, whereas the mayor of Chicago is poking the Bears, I don't know why you needed to throw that in there about the Packers and a winning product. That did not make a whole lot of sense to me if you're the mayor of Chicago. But again, there might be a lot more to it that I don't understand. I'm just telling you my 30,000 foot level. Shout outs. Love our patrons. Patreon.com/RT Media. I interact there every day with you guys. Love all the different forums we have on our private Slack channel. Love when we get new patrons. Pizza Boy Brewing, Sporticulture, Vision Comics with an X, HumanHeadNYC.com. By the way, Human Head vinyl records. My in-laws evidently have a bunch of vinyl records from back in the day, so I might be having some to buy or sell with you, my friend. Other than that, we will do the NFC South. Every draft pick from the NFC South on today's College Draft Podcast, which should be awesome. We've been getting great feedback on those. People love to go through and see everybody their team drafted and the other teams in the division. Other than that, I think we're done here.
Thanks for listening to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast. Make sure to also subscribe to the Fantasy Feast, Even Money, Business of Sports, and College Draft. All available at Apple Podcasts, rosstucker.com, or wherever podcasts can be found.
A lot of times on the show, I mentioned DraftKings. Here's what you need to know. You got to be 21 or older, New Jersey, Indiana, or Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER, or in Indiana, 1-800-9-WITH-IT. By the way, if what I was talking about included a deposit bonus, doesn't always, sometimes it does. Deposit bonus requires 25 times playthrough, and deposit bonuses are paid out in site